This conference will now be recorded.
By source port. I hope that you would have would have spent some quality time with understanding network. So why are we bothering about source port and destination port? See, when I just come from the type of attack to source port, so most of the things have changed. So most of the things appear to be in red color. So DNS reflection, so which uses port number 53. So most of the attacks seem to be happening because of this DNS reflection. I hope that you all are aware of what is DNS, so domain name server. So most of the time when we visit a particular website, so we don't put the IP address, rather we put the domain name. So the domain name has to be resolved by some DNS server. So there are certain DNS exploits, so using which using which people try to bring down the IT resources. So I can even drill it down by destination port. So this is not a tool which I have installed, but what I'm trying to say is like this is a real-time view of top. So here this chart says like top daily DDoS attacks worldwide. So I've just taken this dashboards, or rather live dashboards, which portray what is happening across the world right now, so that we may get to know the picture of what is the importance of cybersecurity or ethical hacking. So most of the traffic as per this particular dashboard is something to do with web. So most of the applications most of the traffic is related to web. So port number 80, 443, I think port number 80 is meant for a web server. Port number 443 is HTTP, 80 is HTTP, 443 is HTTPS. So if you have come from the networking background, then you should be knowing this. So then DNS and other traffic. So this is how the source port and destination port traffic is distributed, and over a period of time. So this is one chart. Let me show you another chart and I'll move on to my presentation. This is another dashboard from Kaspersky. I think most of you should be familiar with Kaspersky. Is a security product developer, and so it's a live network flow that is happening between the countries. And most of the here is a legend for what is happening across the country. Let me just take you to statistics. Okay, we started getting statistics. In terms of all the statistics that we get is classified in terms of this attributes like on-access scan and on-demand scan, and what are the vulnerability scan, and which countries are being affected. So country-wise listing. So how do they get this data? So how do they get this data? So each data is different, right? So in the previous diagram, in the previous dashboard, we have seen DDoS attack. This one is something with respect to Kaspersky, scanning whatever they do. So Kaspersky is one of the leading antivirus service provider. So they got their services installed across millions of devices in the world, and they might be scanning this, and they're reporting data back to us. From what data are they getting this results? So these are the data sources from which they put all the statistics, and we get to know what is the significance of cyber threat and intelligence. So going back to our presentation, I hope that this would have given you a fair idea about what is a need for cyber, or why should we be knowing about the cyber world, and what type of threats that are existing in it, and how should we approach it, and what are the tools and techniques are needed to tackle it. Okay. So why should we know about, or why do we need this hacking? Why should we know about it? Okay. So just Go back to this news. So this is not fictitious news. This is a real news which took place in the last year. So let's look at this particular case, Justile data breach concerns. Okay, so when we want to know certain information, say like who are the best service provider, who are the best air conditioner service provider at my locality, then what I can do, I can just log on to just dial, and I can dial the number and I can get the details. So if I want to get some data, then I should register myself. Basically, what do we give during the time of registration? So we give our personal details, basically name, age, and our contact details, and the demographic wherein we live. So everything we just register, we give to get registered. So these are all the personal data which is not supposed to be leaked or exposed. Okay, basically this data should have been collected by Justile, and they should have stored it in their database. Let's assume that this is how we store the data. Okay, so what is the relation to this process and hacking? Okay, so as a service provider, let's forget about Justile. So let's have some name XYZ. As a service provider XYZ, I should ensure that whatever data I have collected from all my customers is safe and secure with me. Okay, nowadays personal details, even a phone number, has become that is going to affect our privacy. So that is one of the attributes that defines our privacy. So my phone number cannot be leaked as such. So that is something to do with my privacy. So as a service provider XYZ, what should have they done? So they should have made all measures so that no one is gaining access except the legitimate users or applications. Okay, so how to ensure it? So basically, see, when we buy something, okay, so when we buy something online, or when we visit some shop, so we do a double check, triple check that everything is in place, and what is the compliance? Is it having some standards like ISO certification? So everything that we do check for general commodity. So that is the practice. So likewise, XYZ should have formally inducted some security guidelines. What are the security guidelines? Whether my system is secure enough so that only legitimate users can access my network. So all things are starting from the network. Okay, so I understand. I hope that you understand what do I mean. What do I mean by network? You have the server. The server is protected by a firewall. Okay, and the firewall is connected to a switch and router, then gateway. This is how the network topology is getting expanded, right? So if you, I hope this is what you would have seen in the first few sessions. So in the overview of networks. So we have got a gateway. From gateway, it comes to the router. From router to switch. I think whatever we have in your labs and all switch. So switch used to connect multiple systems, and you have firewall, so which is going to protect your environment. So right from the very the first entry to your network, if it is going to be a switch, or not, if you are a small organization, then what you're going to have is switch. But if you're a large organization, what you're going to have is a router. So from the very first point, then that we should ensure that everything is secure. So that is open, that is accessible only by the legitimate user and the network devices. So things should start from as XYZ, that I should have done it. Okay. Second thing is like, is my firewall secure? Okay, so can I access, or can somebody log in and change the rules at my firewall? Then comes your server. Your server is a place where you store all your data. Okay, what is your server? Your server is nothing but a machine which is installed with some operating system, which is installed with some server, web server, database server, some application. Okay, essentially these are the components which are existing on the server. All right, so let's start with OS. Is your OS secure? Okay, so only the legitimate users can access your OS. Can somebody randomly attack your machine? Somebody replay dictionary password to gain access to it? How many ports you have kept open? Okay, so this is at the OS level. Then when it comes to database, whether you have encrypted all your critical data, are you periodically taking backup? Okay, if some copy is lost, some copy is compromised, how are you going to how are you going to handle that situation? Okay, so this is from the database perspective. From the software perspective, we get to know a lot of best practices year on year. Okay, so top 10 vulnerabilities, how to do better programming, how not to do bad programming. So there are standards available. Okay, so if I'm going to write a program that is going to get data from the database, I'll take you through a couple of exploits which are around programming, general programming, something called as cross-site scripting excesses and SQL injection. So these are the two vulnerabilities because of bad programming, so which may expose our data to the outside world. Okay. So having said that, as XYZ, I should have done it. So who will be doing that? Okay, how to do that? Okay, so that process is nothing but hacking. Okay, see, I'm XYZ saying I just compared this with just a the data is lost. Somebody has compromised my IT system. Somebody has compromised the network, and has gained access to my system. Okay, so all the precise data is taken over by the hacker. How to avoid it? Okay, what is a process to ensure which is going to finally certify? Okay, we have got some ISO certification, and even so all your colleges has got some NAC accreditation. So some committee, expert committee comes and visits. Basically, what do they check? What is the process that you follow? What are the documents that you produce? Whether everything happens as per the time, or are you following the complaints? Okay, so this is what they check, and finally they give you NAC accreditation. So your A+, 5-star, 4-star, like that, you get accredited. So likewise, when it comes to IT system, we should follow a process. So that is going to find possible entry points that is going to exist in the entire IT network and computer system. So this is not restricted itself only to a particular computer, only a particular software. According to the context, if I'm the large service provider, everything should begin from my perimeter. So my perimeter, if it is going to host switches, routers, and application servers, operating system, then I should be checking this across my layer. Okay, so when we get into this lockdown, you would have come to know this news, Cognizant Technologies, so that was attacked by a ransomware. Okay, so one of the few of the servers were taken out by the ransomware attackers. Basically, what happens when they attack it with ransomware? So they're going to encrypt all your data. Okay, so it has got encrypted. That is your data. The data is hosted on your server. Okay, it is something like you locked your house and you just went on a trip. Okay, and somebody has hacked the lock, and they just put another key. Okay, so the key with which you have locked your house will no longer work. If at all, if you want to get into your house again, so when you're back from your trip, if now you want to get into your house, then you should be paying heavily to get the key. Okay, so see, now traditionally if you lose a key, then you're going to break the lock. But so that is not how it is going to work on the IT system. So if the data is encrypted, so we all know that how complex it is to decrypt and get the data back. It all depends on your encryption algorithm and how secure or how strong it is. Okay, in the case of CTS, so basically what happens in the case of ransomware attack, so they take all your data, they encrypt it, and the key is with them. If at all, if you want your data back, then you have to pay them. But how to avoid it? So hacking is one of the process wherein, so we formally do it. We formally assess, is there any possible entry point that exists in the computer system? Okay, so hacking is usually done to check, is there any unauthorized access? So right from the network and your system and your application and your database, across the layer, we going to check it. If there are some unauthorized access in terms of open port, or in terms of some vulnerability embedded in the operating system or your software, how to be patching it, how to fix it so that it is not going to hit you later. So whether is hacking legal then? Okay, it depends on who is going to do that and for what purpose are we doing it. So hacking is the process of finding out vulnerability in the IT system. Okay, so that we understand. But is it legal? Can we do that? Okay. If it is done with some good intention, then it is legal. If it is done with bad intention, so what is the difference between good intention and bad intention? If at all, so I have a college and I have just have a laboratory, and every college has got a large IT network, and going forward, everyone we may all get into online classes and all. Sooner we may have a system wherein the exams might take place online, and the staff prepare the questions and they store it in their IT in their computer, which is connected to a network. Okay, in that case, we all expect the network to be safe and secure, whatever data we have collected to be safe and secure. If that machine is getting compromised, if the questions prepared by the faculty is compromised, or the online examination database is compromised, then so then that is going to heavily affect us. Okay, so hacking, if it is a good, what is the meaning of good intent? So we're going to check whether the network that we have established is foolproof. Nobody can break it. Nobody can tamper my database. Nobody can steal question paper from the faculty. So if we do this analysis with this motto, then that is good intention. But if there is some bad student or some bad attacker, so who is going to bring down the server or trying to penetrate to the network to get into the database, so that is a bad intention. Okay, so even before somebody called us a hacker, a bad hacker hacks into the network and steals some meaningful data or some valuable data, as a first step, so we should take the responsibility to check, is there any loophole in the system, and we have to fix it. It is just putting a fence around our house, and so that is why we are making sure that unauthorized access or any outsider or any insects or any animals so don't enter into the houses. So we put a strong fence around us. We often verify it, is it strong enough to stop the unauthorized access. So that is what is to be done as the primary step. Okay, a computer expert who is good at the act of doing all this, they're all hackers. There are different types of hackers. Okay, I hope that you might have often you come across a news that there is a cyber war between the US and North Korea. Okay, so if you just visit the US government website, often they classified that there were n number of attempts from North Korean cyber attacks. So an individual can be a hacker with good intention, bad intention. Often the countries do sponsor hackers. Okay, somebody from Pakistan might try to tamper into the Indian computers or Indian government system, and they try to tamper it. At times, so even the governments may sponsor it. Okay, so North Korea has got a big team which is being sponsored by the government to hack into the other countries' database and to steal data from it. So of late, we heard a news that some atomic centers in India. So all the IT networks have got a frequent visits or frequent access from other countries, especially North Korea. So North Korean, any communication coming in from North Korea has nothing to do with Indian IT system, right? So the intent is not good, right? So they want to get into our nuclear system or our servers and get to know some valuable information. Okay, so how to be checking it and prohibiting it? So hacking, if it is done with good intent, it is going to result in advantages like so it will help us to strengthen our computer and network security, put adequate security measures and preventive measures. Like if you just come to know that your college lab or your college environment is not that strong, then so you know that. How do you know that? By doing this hacking or something called as ethical hacking, and you're going to patch it so that you're going to improve your security. But if it is done with bad intention, so somebody is going to do that, so that is unauthorized first of all, and that is a privacy violation. So in case of just tell somebody has stolen data of someone else, a large number of customers data was stolen, so that is privacy violation. So they might just give out their personal details, their how much they are earning, and what are their phone numbers, basically what type of data they look for. Okay, so if that information is sold to somebody else, then they may misuse it. So there are different types of hackers. So there are many types coming in day out, but we'll be looking at very few of it, and we'll move on to other tools and techniques. So these people, black hat hackers, although also known as crackers. So why do we call them as crackers? Because they're going to sabotage our system, and so these are the bad guys, or these guys are with bad intention. So eventually they may try to bring down or do harm or steal our data. So basically they do this process to gain unauthorized access to the system, and to steal sensitive information. So these guys, whatever they do is always illegal. Okay, so they'll be stealing corporate data. In case of CTS, somebody has stolen, somebody has encrypted it, and if at all they want to get their data back, then they have to pay him heavily. And what results eventually is they're just damaging the system. Okay, if at all my database is encrypted, and okay, and no longer my application will not be able to read from the database. Okay, somebody has gained access to the network, and they've just taken down my network, and they've just encrypted all my data. So with encrypted data, my application will not work. So what should I do? I should be contacting the hacker. So recently, in one of one of the occasions, I come to know that how typically ransomware works. So they just got access to the database, and they just encrypted all the tables and all the columns, and finally they left a message, so which is unencrypted. So we have encrypted all your database. If at all if you want your database back, then you have to pay this much amount of money, not into the bank account, but using bitcoins. I hope that you all are aware of what is Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin is the virtual currency being used for now it has been approved in India, but in the Western countries, rest of the world, it is the virtual currency being heavily used. So you do not know who is going to get. So in the normal banking transaction system, so we transact it using account number, but it is going to be some big number in case of Bitcoin. So you don't even know whom you are paying. So this hacker left that message saying that your DB is encrypted, and if at all if you want your data back, so you just pay this much amount at this Bitcoin address. So that he has given his Bitcoin address. So how this situation could be handled? So one thing, what do we generally do if something is ransomware attacked? So we always have a backup data. Okay. And first of all, there is a flaw in the network system, the network security. So first of all, we shouldn't have allowed him to gain access to a network and take control of the machine. First, he has gained access to the network, then took control of the machine, and then have access to the database. Then he has encrypted. So he has done all these 3-4 steps. Okay, he should have been stopped at the periphery level. Having all this happen, so what options are we left with? Then we should have remove that machine from the network, and rely on your backup data. So you should be always be taking backups for your data. Then give it to postmortem analysis. There is a cybersecurity team, so which is to be is going to take up that machine for doing postmortem analysis. So they'll be just analyzing all the system logs, and when did he gain access, and what tools they have used, and finally, so that machine has to be formatted and has to be installed with data back. So all the steps. I think somebody has to be unmuted. Okay, so next type of hacker is white hat hackers, or somebody otherwise called as ethical hackers. Okay, so why do we call this type of people as ethical hackers? So they do it with some good intention. So what is that intent? So they basically help us to identify what are the black holes in the system, or what are the loopholes in the system, and how to be patching it up, okay, how to secure a network, what are the weaknesses found in our network. So basically they do something called as penetration testing and vulnerability assessment. We call it as VAPT. Hope you might have come across a system like VAPT. So vulnerability assessment and penetration testing is a process, or rather a set of tests being executed by somebody called as ethical hacker to basically assess your network and your computer and your IT system to find, is there any loophole, is there any vulnerability, is there anything to be patched or fixed. Okay, so these ethical hackers are being hired for penetration testing and vulnerability assessment. Ethical hacking is not illegal, so that is legal. Okay, so how we say that that is legal? So they'll let us know prior that these are the tests that are going to do, these are the reason behind the test. Okay, at the end of this test, so I'll give you this report. With the help of that report, you can patch or you can improve or you can upgrade your system so that you'll be free from cyber security attacks and threats. So how often this is to be done? Okay, so we live in a world that things are changing in a fast way, and so see, cyber security attack can happen because of multiple reasons. So I hope that you might have, if you're from the computer science or if you're closely watching cyber security, a couple of years back you would have heard that heartbeat bug. So there is something called a heartbeat bug. So that is something to do with SSL. SSL and SSH. SSH and SSL is the de facto standard wherein using which we have access to the remote system. So that is an open source library. Open SSH and Open SSL is the open source library which is being used for years across the Unix and Linux systems in the industry. There was a bug which went unnoticed for years. A couple of years back, that was found out, and that got fixed eventually. But because of that, because of the vulnerability, so many systems were compromised. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is the breach or the vulnerability or the attack can be attributed by so many things. That could be a bug in the software, that could be bug in in the router. Okay, that could be vulnerability because the vulnerability you have unknowingly added as part of your code. Okay, so all this will have to be constantly. This is something like an audit. So every now and then you have an audit to renew your certificate, right? So like that, this VAPT, vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, has to be done periodically to ensure that your system is secure and strong. Let me show you a couple of sample penetration reports, how it looks like. So then that is going to give us a clue. So what tests that they have carried out. This is a sample penetration test report for some company. Let's start from the process that they have taken. So let's assume that this company has asked somebody to do penetration testing. Let's assume that they host some web services, they host some Java application. Okay, and so these are the different types of tests that they have performed. So remote system discovery, web server, something to do with web server, administrative privilege, whether the admin is the only person who has had access to the system, and with respect to the technology. Let's go back to let's check the report and content. First, they have explained the topology. So Megacorp 1 is the network to be accessed. How did they set up this? He's an ethical hacker. Okay, so how do they set up the environment? Okay, so it all begins with network. So please try to recollect whenever you are about to do your security, it should begin with your last or the entry point to your network. Here, the entry point to the network. To understand what is the entry point to the network, then you should have a holistic view of the network. What are the servers, how they are connected, and where is the firewall? Here, the testing begins with overall view, and specific to the application. Here it is a web application specific to the web application. So they have published a report, and they have just done this at the database, and they have just looked at the code. It seems like they have used some PHP code. They have just looked at the code, and they have just tested it. And this is how they initiated traffic. Okay, so from this test server, how the traffic flow happens. So let me show you another sample report. So it's a bit different on this report. So here, so this listed out the IP addresses to be tested and the URLs to be tested. Okay. So these are all the IP addresses. So the third IP is last 24. So it is going to be, it is going to have n number of IP addresses after that. So it is going to have some 2 power 8 number of IP addresses this series. So it all had started with listing down the resources to be tested and the process they have followed. So discover vulnerability, exploit non-destructive. Again, this is important. It is important. So by the time you're going to test it, you should not be bringing down, or you should not be destroying the existing resources or the software, or at times due to the regression aggressive testing, it might sabotage the hardware. So we should not be doing that. How long that will be done, and what type of testing they will be doing, and what is the approach. First, they'll begin with vulnerability assessment, then exploit each of the vulnerability. Get to know the vulnerability assessment will say that what are the vulnerabilities available in terms of software, in terms of your network, in terms of your database. Then try to say, for example, this vulnerability assessment is going to say that this site is prone to excesses, cross-site scripting and SQL injection. Then they'll be using tools specific to exploit that vulnerability. So there are tools available. A couple of tools we'll also be looking at. So that tools they'll be using it, and they'll be trying to exploit the vulnerability. Okay, so what does it mean? So the system is prone to SQL injection. Okay, so they'll be just creating some script to test that SQL injection, whether that is going to give me some data. SQL injection is a trick by which I'll have access to data in the database. That's all. So that's what SQL injection. So that is because of the vulnerability in the software that was developed. So by exploiting that vulnerability, what is impact? Can I get data? So if I get data, whether I can get all type of data. So that is the impact analysis. Then provide detailed recommendation. Okay, so what are the recommendations if the software is prone to SQL injection? So what kind of recommendation that they can give? So revisit your software, revisit your PHP application. So these are the lines that would have contributed to SQL injection. So this is the way it has to be fixed. Then finally, you just publish detailed report. On the other hand, it would start with broad. So this is something at the application, but this is something like broad scan. So we'll be looking at a couple of tools. We'll be looking at how many are the open ports using Kali Linux tools. So finally, they would have recommended certain guidelines to be followed. So OWASP, Open Web Application Security Testing Framework, is a testing framework, rather security framework, especially for web application. So they just recommend best practices year on year. If at all we want to get rid of SQL injection, so this is how you should write your software. So such recommendations come from standards body, and they will rate it based on your severity. So here is a summary like critical, high, medium. So what I'm trying to explain you is how VAPT is done. So how vulnerability assessment and penetration is done, what are the process they do, and how they formally give us the report. see here, so I'll not take much time on this. Let me show you the findings over here. So these are the findings. One is like SQL injection. So the criticality is high. Why it is high? It may lead to data loss. If this is going to be there, as long as this SQL injection is going to be there, somebody who is not authorized to access my system. See, take for example, just there. So somebody has breached the system and they have just stolen all their data. Okay, they get a copy of the customer data. Okay, so might be one of the reasons could be, as I'm not sure, but I'm just saying, I'm just trying to correlate those two events. So how to avoid it? Use stored procedure, use input validation, use parameters query. So these are all something to be done at your programming. So parameter query and stored procedure to be done at the database. And other things are self-explanatory, insufficient authorization, and so finally, they give you a summary of their findings. How many of the vulnerabilities are high risk and critical, low, medium, and what is the remedy to be taken. Okay, so this is how typically a vulnerability assessment is done and the reports are presented. So this is mandatory whenever you're going to host any website. Okay, so this is mandatory for you to do this testing and get this certificate and publish it. This is one of the standard requirement. So if you approach any governments for hosting a website or any services to be hosted, so this is the prerequisite. So this is basically done by somebody called as ethical hackers. Gray hat hackers is another type of people. So who is blend of both the white hat and black hat hackers. So at times they do with good intent, and times they may turn to be doing it with bad intention. So this, I hope that you might have come across this term like bug bounty program. So gray hacking is in a sort of so the gray hackers are the people who are interested in bug bounty program. So what is a bug bounty program? So bug bounty program is a deal offered by many websites, or organizations, or governments. So recently, a couple of days back, you would have come across this news. Arul is application which is being open sourced by the government. So we can even now look at check the application. If you find any vulnerability, if you report it, if you prove it, then you will be paid. I think that some amount of money is going to be given us. Is going to be given to recognize your effort because there were, when the application was launched, there were news like it has got some vulnerabilities. So the government is open sourced it, so anyone can download that application. You brute force it, try to find the vulnerability. If you approve it with records and evidences, then government is going to recognize you. So why this is done? Okay, why this is done? So this is, see, most of the cybersecurity experts, they do it as out of passion, and they get regularly paid heavily. Okay, it depends on the type of bug that you come across and fix it. So why should the companies, organizations promote this kind of bug bounty programs? Okay, take for example Facebook. Facebook is an application being used by millions of people across the world. Even though Facebook has got a dedicated development team, testing team, QA team, and R&D team. Okay, so what the companies now started thinking is like, let it be evaluated by many hands. Rather than being checked by only a few hands, let it be exploited, let it be checked, let it be tried hard by so many people. If they find some valuable bugs or vulnerabilities, we'll recognize it. That is a strategy. Okay, so when a particular application is tested from or tested by so many eyes, when the particular application is tested by so many hands, so it will become strong and steady. So that is the purpose why the governments, even now the governments have started promoting bug bounty programs. So let me show you a couple of such things that are happening. So these are the public bug bounty list. If you are a cyber expert, you can check in, sign up for it, and you can be contributing to it. So it is just listed out by companies. Okay, so let me get some familiar name. I hope that Adobe you might have heard. Let me get is Airbnb. I hope that Airbnb you might have heard about it. Let's look at Apple. Okay, so the page itself is called as bug reporting. Okay, so here is the process explained, what you're supposed to do, and how you should be doing it, and how you should be presenting your bug reports. Then if at all, if they are okay with your bug reports, what is going to be your, how will be recognized. So if you're interested, you can even look at it. So again, bug bounty is a broad area. So again, so see, Australian Postal Corporation. So sounds like a government, seem to be government entity. So what you're supposed to do, it depends on the type of application that you're going to, tamper or trying to tamper it. See, Arul Setu is one of the it's a mobile-based application which is built for Android and iOS platform. Then you should have some expertise on Android and iOS. If Facebook, if you're going to try to hack it, then that is going to be a web-based application. Rather, even though there are mobile-based applications available, so you should have that relevant expertise. Web-based, if it is going to be web-based, then you should be good at Java scripting, or if they use any particular framework like Angular or React or whatever framework they're going to use, you should be good at it, so that you can be contributing to it. This is another website where you can find similar information. So the idea is there are so many initiatives which promote or which encourage this ethical hacking and gray hacking, and so they host it as a kind of competition. So that you can be just logging in and checking what is the criteria that they're hosting. See, this is another competition hosted by ABN AMRO. I hope that you all know that ABN AMRO is a financial, it's a bank, basically a bank. So what you can report, you can access their website or you can access the application basically for this XSS, SQL, remote site, remote code execution, and S3 server side request forgery. So these are the things. So things you can be validating, and you have to report it. So they just give you rules and regulations how it is to be done. So what I'm trying to say is this ethical hacking is being widely recognized, and it needs a lot, familiarity with a lot of tools and techniques and networking. If we are the focus is getting changed, and even governments and private entities started recognizing this. So before we move on further, so let's spend a couple of minutes on what are the different terminologies. There's not a complete list, but these are the terms that most frequently will be coming across. So what is adware? So adware is when you visit a website, it appears to be ad, but that injects some script at our browser that is going to finally be doing some malicious activity. What is a backdoor? Backdoor is a script that is left at the server through which later an attacker can gain access to it. So what is a bot? So bot and botnet. Okay, so they are some software or scripts, so they can be coordinated by a hacker to launch a DDoS attack. And let me look at few things. I'll not be taking through all definitions. Like DOS and DDoS, will have an exclusive slide on it, especially something like logic bomb. So what is a logic bomb? So logic bomb is something like a time bomb. So a bomb is going to blast at a specific time. So logic bomb is a malicious code which is injected or which is developed as part of the software, which might be doing the trick at a specific time. And of late, we frequently come across a system like phishing, spoofing. Typical examples are email spoofing, email phishing, as if they seem to be a valid, sender, but they'll try to steal the information. So bots and botnets, command and control. See, these are the recent of late. So many attacks are being orchestrated by this bots. So this is how it is going to work. A cyber criminal who is sitting somewhere in the globe, so he would hire so many botnets. I hope that you have a session on dark web. Okay, so dark web is a place where for all unethical purposes, for all illegal activities, so they can hire a bot. So I recently come across a news where you can hire a bot for the $5. Okay, if they hire some n number of such bots, so what they can do, so they can initiate a attack on a specific server. Okay, so why can't they use only one bot? Why should they be hiring so many bots? Okay, so the moment you come to know that you are getting some malicious traffic from say a particular machine, so what you will be doing, you will be just blocking the access. Like somebody, if you get some unwanted call on your WhatsApp or mobile, you are going to just block it. Okay, but dark web is a place where you can hire them. You can hire all such services, bot services. So what this cyber criminal will do usually, he'll hire n number of such bots. Okay, so today it might have different IPs. Tomorrow he might hire n number of such bots. So as a one who is managing this particular server, it is going to be very difficult for you to block this by a particular IP address. Today it is going to be IP1, tomorrow it is going to be IP2, and today it is going to be a set of machines, tomorrow another set of machines going to attack. So this is a trick being used, and not necessarily all the servers would come from a particular location. This might come from US, this might come from Europe. So this is how the attacker launches cyber attack, or something called as DDoS attack. So DDoS is a distributed denial of service where the attack is not coming in from one particular machine. If I have a server sitting in India, I might get at the same time some attacker attacking me from China, from Korea, from Iran, from Europe. Okay, so I'm clueless. But all behind all these attacks, only one is responsible. Only one is behind all these attacks. The same attacker, but he's not attacking me from one particular machine, but he's trying to do it from a bunch of machines. So what is advantage? Why should he be doing it? So I'm clueless, like how many machines should I be blocking it? Otherwise I can block only one number. If I'm getting some anonymous call from a particular number, I can block it. But okay, but if I'm going to get from n number of such numbers, then it is going to be very difficult for me, right? So in case of a mobile phone, it's going to be sequential. After a call, you're going to attend another call. But in case of IT and network, that is going to eat up all your volume. Okay, you got some defined bandwidth. Okay, so if there are going to be multiples of such bots are going to send you requests, then that is going to eat up all your volume. Then you will not be in a position to serve the legitimate user. So broadly speaking, this DDoS can be classified into three major types. Volume-based, protocol-based, and application layer based. So volume-based, like see, you are the service provider, or you are a bank. You could have you could have signed up for a network with some service provider. Say for example, ATAL or BSNL. You could have signed up, and the bandwidth is like 1 gig. 1 gig is your bandwidth capacity. Okay, so using which you should be doing all your banking transaction within the office. If all your customers wants to access your server, then that is a maximum limit. The bandwidth is something like road. Okay, so you own a road wherein simultaneously some 10 cars can 10 vehicles can move in. Okay, so that's how the bandwidth is defined. Okay, so that is meant for your internal operations and for your legitimate customers. Okay, if somebody is going to send you a frequent request, maybe a legitimate or illegitimate user, so then that is going to occupy your volume. That is one type of DDoS attack. And specific protocol. Okay, we got so many protocols. I hope that you would have spent some time on class 1, 2, coming to know about network protocols. And each protocol or in combination of protocol, there are certain vulnerabilities. Take for example, DNS. Okay, so DNS exploits at times will bring down your server. Then there are something called as application layer 7 protocol. Okay, so we have HTTP and HTTPS, so that operate at layer 7. So vulnerabilities found in this layers will result in DDoS attack. Let me quickly show you. Okay, so how this DDoS is taking place and what are the attacks that can happen at layer 3. Hope you would have known what are the 7 layers of the voice stack and what each and every stack is meant for. Okay, so on layer 3, so this many types of attack can take place, and on layer 7, so robot, slow iris, DNS request, HTTP flood, and this particular website, they have just consolidated all such attacks into layers, and they just capture the fingerprinting of it. Take for example, let me show you one thing. For example, let me take HTTPS flood. Okay, so what do you mean by HTTP flood or HTTPS flood? So when we host a particular website, then all this web are accessed using HTTP and HTTPS. Okay, so from the term we can understand flood means beyond your capacity, beyond what you can handle is something called as flood. Okay, so somebody is going to repeatedly sending you some HTTP request. Compare this with the results example. So the university has published the result, but apart from the faculty and the students, let's assume that there are some some hackers sitting in around, and they are sending frequent. They wrote a script. That script is going to continuously hit the server. Let's assume that the university server is going to be hit by thousands of requests per second by a script, which is something like a flood. So eventually the server will come down, and as a legitimate user, you will not be able to do that. Again, I said like the vulnerability is present in the protocol. So what is a vulnerability? Usually, if you just look at SYN authentication, first you have to send a SYN request as a web server that is going to send you some response. Then using that response, you have to again send SYN acknowledgement. So there is a sender and receiver, but what I'll be doing, so you are the server, I'm the client. First, I'll send you the SYN request. You will send me SYN response. Then I should send you SYN acknowledgement. So this is how normally we expect the flow to be. But if it is done with evil intent, what I'll be sending is I'll send you SYN request. You'll be sending me some response, but I'll not use that response at all. Again, I'll send SYN request. Okay, so doing this way, what will happen? The server will be always be waiting for response from you. Okay, I understand that it's a bit hard to comprehend the high level, but what I'm trying to say is, with every protocol, with combination of every protocol, there is some vulnerability. So the hackers might exploit those vulnerabilities, and they will bring down the server. So this is how the internals of the packet flow is captured, and how much what is the capacity of your what is the capacity of your network, and how much it is breached. And so I'll take you through something called as packet capture format using a tool called Wireshark later in the session. Okay, so basically what will happen when you end up in HTTP flood attack, the security analyst will capture all the packets in the form of PCAP. There is something called as PCAP, packet capture format. So using that, they will just analyze, okay, from which IP are you getting this request, what that request actually containing. Okay, So this is how we know it's a post-mortem analysis or a security analyst. They'll come to know out of this IP addresses, how many of them are the legitimate IP addresses. Okay. See, you run a university network, you are the admin of a university network. You come to know that the website is down. Immediately, what you will do? So you'll be just capturing all the packets. You'll be just trying to analyze the sources. If you find any IP address not coming in from India, some IPs are coming in from China, obviously, the first level that is going to give you a hunch. Okay, so this is not to be allowed. Again, this is an overview of how volumetric attack and protocol or application-based attacks work. Okay, in case of ethical hacking, so what are the steps that they are following? First, they will try to do something called as reconnaissance. Okay, so basically, what do they do? It is something like some opponent military is trying to do some surveillance, right? Okay, so we are surrounded by some countries like China, Pakistan, but if they want to invade into some of our land, first they do something called a surveillance. Okay, how many of the whether the troops are there or they're guarding it continuously, is there any loophole? So this is the first process they will be beginning with. Then they'll be scanning it certain tools. Okay, so is there any open ports by which I can gain access into? I can get access into. Okay, yeah, for that matter, if any of you from the computer science department, especially if you are managing any servers, and especially if you have any public IP, if you're having any public server, a server with public IP address, at times there you can run a command. How many failed attempts are there so far? Okay, so take some machine, expose it to the internet, and don't do any firewall. So don't put it behind a firewall. So you just simply host it on the network on the internet. Okay, leave it for a day. There is a command available on Linux which is going to tell you how many failed password, failed login attempts. Okay, so you could see, for your surprise, in 24 hours you might see that thousands, millions of such hits. So basically, how do they do? So they'll get all the machines available in the internet. They'll try to do port scanning. If the port 22, which is meant for remote login, if it is allowed, then they'll try to tamper it with some dictionary password. Okay, so by using dictionary method, if at all if they gain access to the system, that's all. So we are finished. So they'll get into the system, and they'll do some backdrop entry. Okay, so that script at times sooner or later you might change the password, but they still want to maintain the access. So what they'll do, they'll install some backdoor script by which they can continuously tamper your system. Then once the intent is solved, once what for the reason that they're just logged in, once everything is done, then they'll clear the track. So they'll clear all the trails that they have logged in and they have processed it. And finally, once, say for example, in case of ransomware, they could have do the surveillance, they could have scanned all your ports, they could have gained access, they could have installed their script, they could have encrypted your data, they could have cleared all their logs, and finally they'll be reporting you. Okay, I have just hacked your system, I have encrypted all your data. If at all if you want to come out of it, pay this amount. So this is the step. First, they'll be starting with surveillance, scanning, and finally they'll reporting. Okay, so this is a typical ethical hacking process happens. If it is done with good intent, we'll also be doing the same. Okay, if it is done with bad intent, so they're going to tamper the system, they're going to demand you money. But if it is done with good intent, so we'll be trying to know the vulnerabilities and exploits, which if anything is available or not. So these are a few tools used for each and every purpose. Like we'll be using, we can use Nmap, HPing to do this surveillance, and Metasploit is one of the tool. Okay, in the next session, so I'll take you through certain tools. So these are the two databases or which are standards based. So at your time, so you can visit these two sites: common vulnerabilities and exposures and national vulnerability databases. So which is being updated periodically. So based on the vulnerabilities being found from day in, day out, so they are just updating it. If we find any vulnerability, we want to cross check any of the vulnerabilities, then we can visit this. Then another type of attack is Trojan. So this has come from the Trojan horse, with the epic Greek war, the Trojan horse fight. So this is named after it. So this is a non-replication program, so this cannot reproduce itself, but this is going to attach itself to a executable code, and this is going to infect. So how this is going to infect? It is going to infect the machine where it is hosted, and it can spread. Basically, if somebody is going to plug a USB at the infected system, then the USB gets infected. The Trojan is going to get to the USB, and wherever the USB is inserted, it is going to affect. So cross-site scripting is one of the vulnerabilities, which is basically done at the browser. Malicious JavaScript based on the exploits, whatever we have left at the code. So this might happen. So basically, what happens? The attacker exploits vulnerability in a website. Okay, is there any vulnerability in the JavaScript that they have developed? If they found something, then they're going to make use of it. So this is basically this can happen using HTML, JavaScript, VBScript, ActiveX, and Flash. And I hope that when you update your Chrome to the latest version, or when you update your Edge browser to the latest version, you would see the very first message coming in after a specific, I think 2000, I think this year December, or from sometime onwards, Flash will not be supported. Why? Because so these technologies give a way so that your website can be compromised for XSS attack. Again, SQL injection is another type of attack which we should be taking care, especially when we host any application with databases. So it's a trick using your URL, using your data structures. Finally, they can do your data. So what is the consequence if there is a SQL injection vulnerability? So they can dump the whole database. They can, what is the meaning of dumping? So they can get the whole database. They can modify the content. Okay, so they can encrypt it, and they can ask you for a ransom. And they can perform different queries if they come to know that these are the tables and fields available in it. So they can perform different queries, and they can finally steal your data. So how to fix it? So please try to recollect what I have shown in the sample VAPT report. In the VAP report against the SQL injection, so they just highlighted use parameterized queries, use parameterized queries, use stored procedures. But if you come from JDBC, if you're familiar with JDBC, there is something called as prepared statement. So prepared statement is a mechanism, is one of the option that helps you to have a parameterized query. So you will not be hard coding any value in the query, rather you would be just parameterizing it. So I'll stop here. If there are any questions, I'll be taking it up. Then we'll break for a while. So I'll begin my next session with tools and other, Kali Linux and a couple of hands-on.
Sir, which tool are you going to use?
I'll be using Kali Linux.
Okay, sir.
I'll be using Kali Linux and Metasploitable, and there is something called as Zap.
Vignesh, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Sir, if the participants, they want to upload the download or pre-install any software, please share the link and others, sir, if it is any required.
Yes, sir.
No, sir. So Kali Linux
in the cloud. You share the link. Sir, better you share the link.
I will share the link when I just take them through the hands-on. But the problem is Kali Linux is somewhere around 4 GB. Okay, so it can't be uploaded to the cloud. Maybe they can listen to the session, and once
share the link. Done, you'll share the link, sir.
It is part of everything is in the slides, sir. I'll share the slide once this is done.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I'll share before I start this, I'll share that. I get some questions if there are any open sites for ethical hacking. So I understand your question correctly. Can we have any website which has got some security vulnerabilities so that we can start practicing hacking? I believe that is the question. So there is no such website, but we can set up our one of our own. So once a thing is like metasploitable, which I'll take you through. Okay, but make sure that whenever you do it in a sandbox or in a contained environment. So don't try to tamper it on other resources. And if you want to do any certification, which one is good? And there are many service providers, certification providers. One from CompTIA and ISC Square. And based on the level of experience, years of experience, you may choose one. So if at all you want to get into architect level, there is provided you should have some 10 years of experience. So you can look at ISC Square. If you're just curious into getting into ethical hacking and do some hands-on, and CompTIA, CEH is the certified ethical hacker. That's a good one. Somebody has said like virtual machine size is 2.1 GB, but the problem is the moment I upload it, so all of you will try to download from the cloud. If 100 into 2, so that is going to be 200 GB of download, whether the server should support it. Rather, you can download it from the Kali Linux website itself. I'm going to use VirtualBox and Kali Linux 64-bit. So in 1 hour, if you can download it, you can get it ready. Can we build new framework for incident threat intelligence as part of cyber resilience to do research? Okay, so there are some open source frameworks available. Okay, so which you can have a look at it. So I would not say that you just use it, but you just look at the architecture. Something called as Apache Metron, and ELK is another tool which is good for SIEM logs, which you can basically look at the architecture, what are the sources that they consider, and how do they process it, whether it meets your use case. I'm not sure about the use case and what type of data they're going to look at and how long they'll process it. So all this internals you can get to know. Then accordingly you can expand your use case, or you can start using the data. You can use the framework. So legal limits for ethical hacking. See, if it's something like ethical hacking is the process by which we are trying to harden our compute environment. Okay, so first you should practice it at some controlled environment, which is not going to give any, which is not going to result in any which is not going to result in any impact. So for that, you should practice it on your own infrastructure. Before you practice it on someone else's premises or someone else's infrastructure and network, you should get some prior permission, and you should disclose that this is what you'll be doing it. So try to recall it with the reports that I have shared. There, everything is listed out. So these are the IP addresses. These are the tests that I'll be doing. Is there any standard book for ethical hacking? So it is up to us. Rather, I would say that you can fix a track. Okay, you can fix a track, and you can fix some tools accordingly. You can fix some books. Can we hack digital transactions like Bitcoin? So I'm not sure why you are interested in hacking Bitcoin. So the concept behind Bitcoin is like it's a distributed ledger concept. So every transaction is going to be distributed, and all the transaction logs are going to be distributed. As of now, it is very hard. As of now, I'm saying, okay. As days go by, there are chances it might be. Okay, and the encryption algorithm being used, across this bitcoins, and it's very, very strong. So you might need a powerful infrastructure machines to do that. Sometime after doing some ethical hacking our system, I don't get the question. Sometime after doing some ethical hacking practical, our system going to attack to buy some other malicious site. How to protect? So the best practices are to be followed. So don't get exposed yourself. So like, for this COVID-19 situation, so what do we do? So after this outbreak, when we were about to step out from a house, then we put some gloves, we put some masks, and we, as soon as we get to the house, then we cleanse our hands. Often, the medical team comes and checks, are there any symptoms? So something similar to that. So one best practice is don't expose to the network. Okay, sit behind a firewall, shut all ports which are not needed. Okay, and try to secure your ports. If at all somebody, if you want to enable some remote port access, secure it and encrypt it, the traffic. Do periodic audit. Okay, if somebody is trying to access you consistently from non-trusted source, so try to block them. So these are some. So what I'm trying to say is, don't expose. Have some tools, follow best practices, and have some periodic auditing. If the next question is like, do you need any account or to do that vulnerability assessment locally? So we are going to set up at your local machine. So I think when we are going to download a Metasploit, all the tools are going to be supplied, all the credentials are going to be supplied. So you would not need any other login credentials. How to know the vulnerabilities present at the website I hosted? You can begin with standard vulnerability assessment tool. So there is going to be checking starting from the application, and based on the type of application, that is going to check your JavaScript and your DB and your the programming languages. So what you can do is, if say for example, that is again based on programming language. If you use Java, what are the checks to be done? If you are developed using ASP, what are the checks to be developed? VirtualBox is not a pen test tool, but it is a VM. So using which you can host a VM. I think that's all of the questions I have. So if there are no other questions, then I'll pause here. Then we'll meet after. So we'll meet again at 2:30. How safe to use open source platform? So the source is with you, right? So if somebody comes to know that there are some issues, then they can always be checking at it and fixing it. So that is a advantage of opening the source.
So I think, Vignesh sir, I think it's okay. Now 1 o'clock now. So we'll meet by 2:30, sir.
Okay, okay, Madhu. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. So
Thank
participants will meet by 2:30 as per the schedule. Thank you.